Greetings shippers, welcome back, and it's time to tackle a ship that you guys have been asking for since pretty much the very beginning. You saw the title, you know what it is, get excited, it's Sterek. Now some of you may be wondering, why did this take so long? Well, this is actually a collab, and I have to take a moment to thank my excellent writing partner, Lee, a writer from the Gay UK and also his own blog, Who Asked You? Now, Lee is a saint. He is the best collaborator of all time because I don't even want to let you know how long we have been working on this. There have just been setbacks and other things, and he has just been so patient the entire time. So thank you so much. Check out all of his stuff down below, his Tumblr, Twitter, all of that good stuff. It's going to be down there, as well as the link to the entire article that we wrote together. So Sterek is a huge topic. There are so many facets to it that we're not going to get to exactly everything. So if you feel that anything is missing and you want to see a whole video elaborating on it, please just let me know and we'll do an update, just like how we did Joker and Harley, and then that update about those who felt that Harley was abusing him. It was fascinating. We can do something like that here because we're not going to hit the shipping wars too hard between fans. Instead, we're going to focus more on creative staff versus fans. But oh yes, I'm aware of the great many shipping wars that occurred in this fandom. They were legendary. So without further ado, let's get ready for an overview of Sterek. When it comes to television shows, the phenomenon known as shipping is no new thing. Pairing characters together as a practice has gone on in this medium since the 60s, where it first emerged prominently in the Star Trek fandom between Kirk and Spock. However, there are some pairings that become so large they become part of the fandom landscape, and it appears that Sterek shall be one such pairing. Sterek comes to us from the world of Teen Wolf, a teen drama show loosely inspired by but not based on the 80s dramedy of the same name, and the show contains various allusions to that source material. This teen supernatural genre show focused on the drama and the lives of a group of regular teens and werewolves, as well as other supernatural characters. It was developed for MTV and ran for 6 seasons, boasting 100 episodes. Thanks to its presentation and tone, it garnered quite a bit of success within its target demographic, and in 2011 and onwards began to develop quite a social media presence, becoming one of the first shows to have such an active fan base on platforms such as Twitter. It seemed to have all of the ingredients necessary to become a fan pairing darling, which it most certainly did. Indeed, this show contains a multitude of ships. However, none loom as large as Sterek, which became the lens through which many fans came to enjoy the show, even after one of the members of the ship had been temporarily removed. Now, Sterek as a phenomenon is unique in its popularity. Not only does it exceed the characters, but it also exceeds the height of the show's popularity, and is wrought with tales of queerbaiting and harassment to and from the creative staff, with much of the vitriol directed towards series creator Jeff Davis, especially in light of his status as an openly gay man. In some ways, Sterek asks questions far beyond should these two characters be together, and casts aspersions on the entire concept of using fan enthusiasm to drive viewership, which seems to be the gripe many people have taken with Teen Wolf and how they managed the insanely popular Sterek ship, a ship that hit its peak popularity during the earliest seasons of the show. With the series now complete, it is possible to look back and ascertain just what exactly happened with Sterek and what worked and what did not. To this day, Sterek is one of the most recognizable ships even outside of the Teen Wolf world. Within the show's own fandom, the pairing far outweighs its competitors/compatriots, having more works of fan fiction, fan art, and fan videos than even Stydia, another very popular Teen Wolf ship between Styles and Lydia, and also more than Skallison, the main canonical focus of the show's earlier seasons between Scott and Allison. So one must now ask, why ship these two? What made them so appealing? So of course, let's meet the players. Starting with Styles Stilinski, played by Dylan O'Brien. Styles initially came off as the sarcastic, funny best friend archetype. However, over time, Styles distinguished himself as a smart and loyal friend willing to take part in any and everything. Occasionally dorky and awkward, his upbeat persona rendered him one of the most likable characters, and as the series progressed, his importance grew as he set out on a track that led to tragedy, sacrifice, and becoming a true hero. Next up, Derek Hale, resident bad boy archetype, complete with a leather jacket. Derek's older presence is at times meant to be sobering, or at least mentoring, but he is often swept up in the goings-on, and occasionally plays the role of either anti-hero or straight-up antagonist. Derek's werewolfism presents itself quite aggressively at times in terms of his behavior, which can be animalistic, such as the famous clip where he smells Styles. He also displays many of the traits associated with werewolf lore, particularly loyalty. Derek's experiences have hardened him, from betrayals to the taking of innocent life. Derek must often hide his more sensitive side behind behind a tough exterior in order to get by. These two possess many traits that narratively play very well off each other, with Derek poised to be the straight man to Styles' antics, even if Styles is the one tagging along. As a result, their scenes can be quite amusing and are some of the more memorable, and the two actors play well off each other with an ease that makes it feel that they are friends, even in their more fraught interactions. This ease of interaction carries into real life, into interviews and the like, which for many shippers can also add fuel to the fire. And of course, the show is already ripe with shipping potential, since werewolves are already a topic of fascination. As these two's popularity and prominence rose, so did the ship, producing a plethora of fiction, from AUs, such as Always Human, Both Werewolves, Soulmate/Marks, and of course, Alpha, Beta, Omega fiction. The story already contains actual alphas, so it's not a stretch to rework the rest of the world. I did a video on Alpha, Beta, Omega dynamics, so check that out if you're interested in hearing more. As with most ships, as its popularity grew, some fans began to either encounter the ship before they became familiar with the characters in the show, and hence actually entered the show already looking to ship these two. Or some began to enter the fandom and see the prominence of the ship and become intrigued, creating a kind of snowball effect that enlarged the pairing. And of course, parallel to this happening were people who were encountering this ship and being repelled by it. Now, part of this pairing's appeal was definitely due to the fervor with which certain fans, mostly female but not exclusively so, took to these two characters due to their, well, attractiveness. However, arguably for some, Sterek just made sense. Seasons 1 and 2 of Teen Wolf had a core cast that were already paired up. Scott and Allison made up the aforementioned Skallison, while Jackson and Lydia made up the less popular but ever-present ship, Jydia. There was also a running love triangle-esque storyline that seemed to be putting Styles between Lydia and Jackson. However, as is often the case within fandom, canon does not always hold the audience's attention, and viewers may find themselves drawn to subtext when it comes to what ignites their pairings. In these instances, many fans were quick to notice that while ostensibly Styles was meant to be invested in the show's burgeoning love triangle, he instead found himself running off to help Derek. Their story and chemistry fed into the popular hate-to-love, enemies-to-lovers trope that made people invested in their back-and-forth witty banter and blatant opposites attract dynamic, even though there were some core underlying similarities. These instances began to be collected in compilations of what some fans viewed as proof, or at least indications that there were avenues to be explored with these characters that were simply not being given enough weight. Jeff Davis himself commented on the particular comedic side of their pairing, with Derek being a big surly werewolf who has to put up with a sharp-tongued, eager sidekick. While these comments may have been meant to connect with fans by engaging in their fandom or merely express an opinion, they proved to be the beginning of an ongoing battle between Davis and certain fans, as it was viewed by some as endorsement of the ship, which led some to question if he saw the potential of this pairing, then why not advocate for its placement on the show? Which leads into the very pertinent question of how can one take his comments, and how much weight must a creator's comments be given, as there are many involved when it comes to decisions made on how a television show evolves. Also, how seriously can one take a creator's comments if they are not made in the context of official statements, i.e. on Twitter and the like? Jeff Davis has faced much criticism from fans as a result of how this pairing was handled on the show, and has had many accusations leveled against him, from gay and bisexual erasure to using the fans' passion for their pairing to further viewership. On top of that, accusations have been leveled at him for not being able to handle not having discovered Sterek himself. It has definitely not been smooth sailing for this creator. Before one dives into the former assertions, let us examine the relations between creator and fan on social media. In the modern era of shipping, following the rise of social media and the increase in creator accessibility, it has become easier than ever for fans to express their feelings and make demands. This occurred quite frequently with Sterek, as many fans saw so much potential in the ship. While fans expressing what they think is best for a show or pairing is nothing new, the ability for others to see, share, and agree or disagree has created a new level of investment when it comes to these issues. And as a result, things can quickly balloon out of control, as we have seen with many instances. Fan outrage and entitlement can lead to situations of creative teams being harassed for things entirely outside of their control, i.e. the Voltron Studio Mer blackmail incident, where an artists were blackmailed in an attempt to make a certain ship canon, even though the series had already been plotted and was set to air. However, this is not to say creative staff are perfect either. While fans may act out more simply by virtue of there being more of them, there are certain members of creative teams who have no filter or active PR staff when it comes to engaging with their fans, which can lead to instances of creators bullying and belittling their fans, a phenomenon which often occurs around shipping. This is as feelings begin to run quite high for all involved when each side has strong views as to what is best for a show and its characters. In the case of Teen Wolf, it is safe to say that it was not the best situation for either either side, though both would probably claim that the other went too far, and both would have valid claims to such an assertion. There are numerous examples of Sterek being acknowledged by various members of the creative staff, and not always in the most positive light. Although it must be noted that creators affirming or not affirming a ship does not mean one must stop shipping it. Indeed, it could be argued that part of fandom's function is to explore elements that are either taboo or not welcome/explored within the main canon. However, in an era where shipping culture and fandom have become more prevalent and better understood, it can be hurtful to hear an actor on the very show one is a fan of call one's pairing twisted, as was the case with Tyler Posey. Although it must also be noted that some fans may take these incidents much more seriously than they were intended to be. For example, some view the creation of Sterek-based material to encourage a Teen Choice Awards show win as the ultimate in terms of queerbaiting and pandering to fangirl culture, while others view it as a smart business decision. If one's audience is showing an affinity for a certain aspect of one's show, why not use it? Some creators even view this as a way of giving back to the fans and not as a way to insult them. It is simply something that has always been done and will continue to be done regardless of the sexuality of the pairing in question. However, as so few homosexual pairings ever come to fruition in circumstances where the will they won't they dynamic is involved, in contrast to the more traditional heterosexual relationship baiting, some feel it is unfair to utilize such tactics until the will they aspect of such couples comes into the forefront. In short, more of these couples need to come to fruition before it's fair to tease. Others still feel that this type of pandering contributes to the fetishization of queer culture that can occur within a more heterosexually dominated female fan base, especially when these ships are being officially treated as novelties to be squealed over rather than real relationships between characters that could be developed as well as enjoyed. Especially in light of Twitter posts disavowing the ship entirely, which made many fans feel that the disingenuousness in featuring Sterek in online popularity polls and for visibility within the show was magnified. All of this made the ship very complicated, and for many within the fandom less enjoyable. While not everyone wanted the ship to be made canon, even amongst those who were fine with it remaining in the fandom, it could be disconcerting to see the ship paraded around to maintain the show's overall popularity and attract even more fangirls, even after both of these characters were no longer serving such dominant roles. Though as always, it must be noted that there were some for whom none of this was an issue, either because they were unaware of it or because they feel all is fair game when it comes to marketing a show, and each marketing/creative team is free to use the methods they deem the most effective. Now the question for many observing fandom becomes, does actor or creator acknowledgement encourage or discourage shipping of a given pairing? The answer, it varies from shipper to shipper. For the more canon-based shipper, or those who are more inclined to give creative authority to those involved with the work in question's actual production, it may negatively impact their shipping, or even lead to them feeling ashamed or silly for shipping it in the first place. While those who view their fandom as independent from the creative staff's own views will still ship on, but may in response regard the aforementioned people involved with a more critical eye. And there are of course those who can ship undeterred, regardless of any surrounding discourse. And one must be skilled at avoiding discourse if they do not want to get involved with it when it comes to Teen Wolf, as it is now time to talk about erasure. Different from the accusation of pandering, this is an assertion that Jeff Davis actively ignored the potential sexualities of these characters, a belief many grant credence thanks to quotes such as this one. I'll admit this is a bit out of reach of my understanding, even as a gay man. I'm also not sure they may see the characters as perfectly straight. We've certainly made some hints to the possibility of Styles being bisexual. Now this statement could be viewed as an attempt to include fans with alternate headcanons in light of how the relationship between Styles and Derek was playing out on the show. However, some viewed this as an attempt to silence this narrative in favor of a heteronormative one. Queer erasure is defined as the tendency to ignore, remove, falsify, or re-explain evidence of certain queer identities in history, academia, the news media, and other primary sources. A feeling that some fans gave voice to in the light of the aforementioned queer baiting. That being the practice to hint at, but then to not actually depict a potentially same-sex romantic relationship between fictional characters. The potential romance may be ignored, explicitly rejected, or made fun of. Now it is clear that to some extent queer baiting became part of marketing Sterek to the fans. However, were the charges leveled against Jeff Davis as being irresponsible with representation thanks to his status as an openly gay creator fair? Is it possible to hold him responsible for creating a narrative that should speak to the entire gay experience? He is after all only one man, and queer culture is not a monolith. However, some feel that those from groups that traditionally experience less representation in mainstream media owe it to their groups to make sure they are accurately currently represented. However, some feel this is an unfair pressure to place on one single member of a creative team, as creative decisions often have to run through multiple sources and hierarchies before they come to fruition, and even extremely established creators have to bury their intentions until a show's conclusion. A good example of this is the relationship between Korra and Asami in the show The Legend of Korra, and even then the decision can come across or be labeled as pandering to that viewer base. In short, it is a complex issue, and it is possible that Davis was unfairly maligned, even if he did not always handle the ship's popularity with the most grace. And it is of course fair for creators to not understand where a ship is coming from. Not everybody views a show the same way, and when one is involved with the actual creation, they may have a very different vision for what is occurring than the fans, who are ultimately viewing it from a different perspective. Now, of course, there are other reasons to dislike this ship that have nothing to do with all of the above discourse. Preferring one of the other ships, a lack of affinity for one or both of the characters, or simply not seeing any of the alleged chemistry. Some even view the ship as predatory, although there is some tongue-in-cheek to this potentially, as being a show about werewolves, the relationships are often literally predatory. Now, some initially shipped but were driven away because of all the discourse, which could make the fandom surrounding the ship difficult to navigate at times. Though since the show's conclusion and the characters being phased out seasons earlier and then returning, that has calmed down. Now, of course, some shippers went on in spite of all of this, drawn to the plethora of fics and art, with a mind to simply enjoy their ship regardless of all external musings. Now that the series has concluded, another question emerges on the horizon that can be properly examined outside of the emotions surrounding an ongoing series. That being, would Sterek actually have made the show better? Now, there are some for whom the answer is of course, not even a question, since they feel more representation is necessary and in this case certainly desired. However, for those who have seen their more traditional will they won't they ships come to fruition, they may argue that when a fan favorite pairing actually becomes canon, it can actually derail the show for many viewers, and would argue that some ships should stay in the realm of fandom. Giving the fans what they want does not always yield the best narrative results, even if more ardent shippers will be pleased with anything. Especially in a case like this where the ship has become such a point of contention between the creators and fans, although it is possible to salvage such a relationship as demonstrated by shows such as Supernatural when it came to how they discussed Destiel, though that is a story for another video. There are numerous fics out there exploring the narrative from the point of view of Sterek being canon, so now it is up to fans to determine whether the pairing would have improved the show, as we will never really know. Sterek will certainly go down as one of the most contested and well-known pairings in fandom history, whether or not it retains its current level of popularity. So now it must be asked, what do you guys think of this pairing? Did how popular it was improve or take away from the show for you? Were you even shipping it at all? And how do you feel about the accusations leveled against the series creator? Share all of your thoughts down below. I know this one has been a long time coming, so thank you so much for your patience. Thank you again to Lee for being patient and the best collaborator ever. Check out all of his links down below. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to all of my patrons, names on the side. Also, link below, the next monthly vote is coming up, so head on over there if you want to get involved in helping determine content. And as always, stay tuned, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.